Okay, welcome to the God Idea. My name is Howard Eber. I am an alcoholic. I'm going to be your host this evening. This is brought to you as a joint venture between the Big Book Compendium and the Big Book Comes Alive. It's one of two joint efforts now. The second one is tomorrow night. Steve and I go through the book together. The Big Book Comes Alive does uh, circulate for the seventh tradition because we do send money to Intergroup. So I'm going to put up this screen share, and if you can give, please do anything above and beyond our rent, when we don't have the rent here, so it goes straight to Zoom. If you can give us by a Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. If you'd rather the old-fashioned way, there's the address down below. I just ask, if you send it the old-fashioned way, please be sure to put your email address in it so we can acknowledge it when we receive it, just to keep track of everything. If you can't, that's okay too. But if you can, please, it helps keep the expenses down. Um, we are, we've previously been talking about the problem, the physical allergy that ensures that we cannot take that first drink without triggering the uh, abnormal reaction of craving, the allergic reaction of craving. We've talked about the obsession of the mind that tells us we don't have a physical allergy. And we've talked about the spiritual malady that starts everything in motion, this restless, irritable, discontent feeling, this feeling of being hypersensitive, being a raw nerve, that eventually we convince ourselves that this time I could handle it, that this time it'll be different. And that obsession eventually wins out and it triggers a physical allergy, and we're off to the races. And now Bill is going to share his story. And remember, it was Bill's sharing his story that got Dr. Bob's attention. The value of one alcoholic talking to another is beyond measure. That's what got Dr. Bob's attention at Henrietta Seiberling's house, and it still works today. And this book is very much a 12-step in print, because remember, this was the program. Alcoholics Anonymous was not a group of meetings. Alcoholics Anonymous was this. Before there was anything else, there was this. So if all we have is this, it starts out with telling us his story. First chapter is to get our attention. The whole purpose of this chapter is identification. Now, I don't know about you, but I read this story for 20 years and couldn't identify with a damn thing in it. Not a single thing in Bill's life. He was a night law school student, and the law was always the enemy to me. I don't know anything about the law. He was a stock speculator, and I could barely spell stock speculator, let alone understand what that person does. For you ladies here, he was a man. There's enough reason to not be able to understand him. I always thought he was an older guy. And you know that he was only 43 when he wrote this? So he's not, maybe when I started reading it, he was an older guy, but to me now he's a very young man, a very young man of 43. He's in his adolescence, in a sense. He was in the service. He was in the military, and I couldn't relate to that at all. I was a short, asthmatic, nearsighted Jew, overweight Jew from New York who'd never been in any form of the armed services. To me, a bayonet was a cute cheerleader from Bayonne, New Jersey. What the hell did I know about armaments and military? But, and here's the big but, if we look for certain things as we go through Bill's story, if we look for the way he thinks, and we look for the way he drinks, and for the way he acts, there shouldn't be any one of us who by the end of this chapter can't say, I'm just like that guy. And what I'm going to suggest you do is when you do come across a point of identification that, gee, I did that, or gee, that sounds familiar, put a pencil check mark next to it. And you'll be amazed by the time we get through the first reading how many points of identification you have. So I'm going to suggest we check off points of identification. I'm also going to suggest that we look for, and if you want to check off, couldn't hurt, points of progression. As Bill goes from drinking for fun to drinking to function to drinking for the worst reason of all, the sickest reason of all, and I should say drinking and drugging, because by that time it was both of those things, to seek oblivion. There's no fun, there's no function, it's just seeking of oblivion. But I'm also going to suggest that we watch for signs of Bill's quest for status. Bill is always involved with big shotism, and he uses all kinds of hyperbole, unnecessary exaggeration. He likes to point out his status and how great he is, and how the ego is what I'm talking about. So when we come across those things, I think you may want to check those off. So we can keep track of that, and you can see how that changes as we go through the book, and as his drinking changes, maybe his outlook towards himself changes as well. So we're going to take a look at Bill's story. We're on, obviously, page 1. For those of you who are not familiar, Bill is the primary author of this book. Bill is one of our co-founders. Bill was born on the March 4th, 1891. Oh, no, is that? I'm sorry, Bill was born. That was Lois's birthday. I'm sorry. Bill was born November 26, 1895. 11/26/1895, or as you guys in the UK say, 26/11/85, whatever, 95. He was born in East Dorset, Dorset, Vermont. His full name is William Griffith, Griffith, Wilson. He was I mentioned, in the military. He served as a second lieutenant in the Coastal Artillery. He was married to Lois Burnham Wilson, Burnham, Lois Burnham, Burnham. Lois was the co-founder, eventually, of Al-Anon in 1951. She formed it with Ann Bing, Bingh, not Ann Smith, not Dr. Bob's wife. She had passed away already. It's interesting that the founders of Al-Anon are named Lois and Ann, and we often assume who the Ann is, and it's not Ann Smith. It's Ann Bing, or Bing. I'm not really sure how she pronounces it. But Annie Smith died in 1949, and Al-Anon was founded a few years later. It's only 2 years later, but she's responsible for the concept of it in a lot of ways. Bill married Lois in 1918. They were married for 53 years. 53 years. Whew. Unbelievable. Bill died January 24th, 1971. At what I consider the premature age of 75. My opinion, he smoked himself to death because he was smoking up until the end. He's one of those people who had an oxygen mask on and a cigarette in his hand. That was Bill Wilson. What else can I tell you biographically? His wife, Lois, died. She was born, that's what I said in the beginning, I made a mistake. She was born March 4th, 1891. She was 4 years older than Bill, and she died October 5th, 1988. at the ripe old age of 97. Old gal had a good run. And a lot of what we know about Bill Wilson is because when he passed away, she made it the mission for the rest of her life to let these things be preserved, to keep Bill's history, to keep our history, Alcoholics Anonymous history together, not just Al Anon, but to remember all of these things about her husband. She was always very protective of his reputation. So, and I'm going to also suggest in the left-hand corner of the first page, you write step 1, because that's what this chapter basically focuses on. It talks about 3 particular elements of step 1. It talks about admission. It talks about unmanageability. It talks about powerlessness. Those are the 3 key items to keep in mind as we go through this chapter. So let's begin. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we knew young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned. That's Plattsburgh, New York. And before I ever start every cycle, I always think, I can't believe I'm going to be reading this one again. War fever ran high. How many times have I said that? Jesus. But I maybe to spice it up, above war fever, I wrote the words pandemic, because for a lot of us, that's where this all started. There's a lot of COVID babies here. And so for a lot of people, COVID, pandemic, fever ran high. So for Bill, it was war fever ran high for those young officers who were assigned and flattered when the first citizens took us to their homes, making us feel, there's number 1, heroic. One of the things that I do to accent these uses of hyperbole, these uses of examples of its quest for status, is I put a little red check mark next to it, a little red pen check mark. I pencil check the points of identification, but the things about status, I check in red. And watch how many there are on this page alone. And that's one of the other things about a red check, is it stands out. When I say he's always using these terms, you're going to see. So here's the first one, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause. There's a check mark next to applause, a red check. War, moments sublime with intervals hilarious. I'm going to suggest you highlight that. Moments sublime with intervals hilarious. Anyone ever have any of those? That's when using was fun. He's drinking for fun. Moments sublime with intervals hilarious. Sublime is an activity that's filled with joy and filled with elation. It's party time, man. It's sex, drugs, rock and roll. In another age, that's what it would have been. Moments sublime with intervals hilarious. And I'm going to suggest you highlight this sentence. I was part of life at last. And in the midst of that, the excitement, I discovered liquor. Rob, if you could give me number 1, we're going to see what exactly did Bill discover about alcohol. Did you ever wonder about that? He says, I discovered it. Well, what did I discover?
Sorry, Howard, do you still have a screen share on? Because it's not available to me.
What? How do I turn it off?
Should
I
be
didn't have it on. I didn't think I had it on. Can you turn it on now?
No, it's not showing up on my. Bear with me.
How's that? Try that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Multiple. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at 1:1. He's saying it was part of life at last. And in the midst of excitement, I discovered liquor. What did he discover about it? Well, he discovered that every time he had a drink, it gave him a new freedom and a new happiness. Every time he took a drink, it helped him not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. It made him comprehend the word serenity and no peace. I think you're getting the point. I don't need to go through every one of these, but we're talking about those ninth step promises. What alcohol gave him, what he discovered about alcohol, the 12 steps later gave him without the heavy price tag. But that's what I've always believed discovered meant. I don't think that that was the first time he came across a bottle filled with alcohol and he said, "Oh, what's this? I never heard of anything like this." I know he knew all about alcohol. He was raised around it. His father was an alcoholic. His grandfather was one who recovered. He knew all about alcoholism. He knew all about alcohol. So it's not like he just discovered this miracle substance. He discovered what it could do. Okay, let's get back to the book. I was part of life at last. I discovered liquor. I forgot the strong warnings and prejudices of my people concerning drink. In time, we sailed for over there. And please highlight this. I was lonely and again turned to alcohol. Above lonely, please write his problem. Now, when normal people are lonely, what is the normal solution to the problem of loneliness? It's to seek companionship, right? Call up a pal, have a phone call, maybe go to the movies, maybe just go down to a street corner where a bunch of guys are hanging out, maybe just pick up a phone call. The normal way to resolve the problem of loneliness is to seek companionship. So from a very early age, we see how problematic Bill's response is because he does not seek companionship. He seeks companionship with the bottom. And now in one paragraph, we've seen that when things are good, he knows alcohol makes it better. When things are not so good and feeling uncomfortable, alcohol makes it go away. So in the very first paragraph of this book, we're already told the man's got a problem with alcohol. And I personally have a check mark, a pencil check mark next to where it says I turned to alcohol. When I was lonely, I turned to alcohol because I could absolutely identify with that. We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. This was roughly August 1918, I believe. Much moved. Please highlight that. We're going to come back to those two words in a moment. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel. Doggerel is just a poem, a little poem on an old tombstone. And here's what he remembers. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold, small beer. A good soldier is ne'er forgot, whether he dieth by musket or by pot. And we're not talking about wacky weed pot here or sesame, and no, we're talking about a pot of ale. But let's go back a little bit. Let's look at this for a second. He's writing this in 1938, right? He was at that point in Winchester Cathedral in 1918. That's 20 years between the two, and he remembered it. He couldn't Google it. He didn't have a picture he took on his car on his cell phone. In order for him to recall it for the book, he had to have it that deeply embedded in his head that he recalled it so well. But before I go on to so well, I want to go back to those two words I said earlier. Much moved. It's one of the points in this book that I wish Bill would have expanded a little bit more. And I think you'll agree with me in a moment, because I'm going to read to you Bill's explanation in another source. And I think you'll find his explanation in this one, Pass It On, is much better than much moved. So you decide. And Rob, if I can have 102. This is from Pass It On, page 60, for those of you who are interested. And here's what Bill has to say about Much Moved. Oh, no, we're going to come back to that one. I'm talking about 102. Let me see where it is. Not there. Well, all right, you know what? Let's take a look at this one. As long as you got this up, let's stick with this one for a minute. This is the actual stone. Actually, the actual one was dug up and put in a museum. This is an exact copy. People are always taking pictures of themselves next to it. But let's go to the next screen, the one you just had up, and we'll do a comparison. Here's what it says in our book. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is ne'er forgot, whether he dieth by musket or by pot. And here's what it said on the actual tombstone that he remembered so well 20 years later. Here sleeps in peace a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death by drinking cold small beer. Soldiers, be wise from his untimely fall, and when you're hot, drink strong or none at all. An honest soldier ne'er is forgot, whether he die by musket or by pot. How's that? It deeply embedded itself in his memory so well that that's the way he remembered it 20 years later. That's amazing. Let's go to the very next screen, as long as we're in this neighborhood. Yeah, that one. Cold small beer. What are we talking about? Back in those days, disease was transmitted through water. And the way to kill that disease very often would be to boil that water to try and kill it off, but it's difficult to drink hot boiled water. But alcohol, beer, ale, was able to kill those germs, so the plague and so on wasn't able to be transmitted as easily. But the thing about that is you had to drink it when it was warm. If you allowed it to get cold, that bacteria returned. So small beer was a weak, popular beer, popular to kill many of these waterborne diseases. Most of the germs causing the diseases would be killed either by the process of brewing the beer or the resultant alcohol content. If the alcohol content was too low, the protection may not be there, possibly explaining poor Thomas's violent fever. Cold small beer to be avoided then, an idea embraced by Strongs of Ramsey, a Hampshire brewer, whose slogan later became "Drink strong or none at all." Strong, warm beer. All right, since we can't find, I don't see it on the bottom, Pass It On. Let's go a little bit over. Yeah, I thought I could have sworn I sent that. All right, I'm sorry. I'm going to just read it to you. How about we do that? Yeah, okay, let's take that down. This is from Pass It On, and see if it doesn't describe it better than Much Moved. Bill went to visit Winchester Cathedral. Once inside the great cathedral, the atmosphere impressed itself so deeply on him that he was taken by a sort of ecstasy, moved, stirred by a tremendous sense of God's presence. I've been in many cathedrals since, he said, and have never experienced anything like that. For a brief moment, I had needed him and wanted God. There had been a humble willingness to have him with me, and he came to me. In that moment, Bill knew that everything was all right, as it should be. Now, you tell me that's not a better way of explaining it than Much Moved. Much Moved does not do it justice. I'm sorry. Bill liked to exaggerate, but here's one case that he didn't, and I wish he would have. It's also in Lois Remembers. Yes, Judy's putting that up. It's in a couple of different places. Just explain better. That's all. Much move just isn't enough for me. But let's continue. Ominous warning, which I failed to heed. So he has this experience in the cathedral. He asked God basically for a sign, show me something, and he felt something, and it kind of gave him the chills in a sense. So because he ran out of the cathedral, and the first thing he ran up to was this headstone, and later, years later, it dawned on him that he was asking God for a sign in some direction. And the direction he gave him was written on this headstone. And that direction was that alcohol can kill you just as much as a musket can kill you. Bill didn't catch that at the time. 20 years later, or less than 20 years later, when he was talking to Ebby, all of a sudden that dawned on him what God was trying to tell him, which is why he said, ominous warning, which I failed to heed. Ominous just means something that's foreboding, something that's predicting evil. It indicates something of evil is coming down the line, some evil event. And in this case, the evil was that alcohol was as deadly as a musket was, a musket bullet, or a bullet from a musket. And he failed to heed it. That's the second time, incidentally, on this page, Bill admits to failing something, forgetting something. In the first paragraph, he said, I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudices of my people. Right here, he says, I failed to heed. There aren't too many instances in this book where Bill admits failure in any way. Here's two of them on the first page alone. He usually takes credit for everything, and it does not admit failure very well. He does here twice on the same page. But continuing, 22 and a veteran of foreign wars, I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader. Red check, a leader. For had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation? And I've checked appreciation in red. And if you'd like to know what that was, that's in one of the things I gave Rob. I'm not sure what the number is. It is 1.4. 1.4. And it was not uncommon in those days for men of a battalion or what have you. I'm not sure what the right term is, so don't yell at me. I don't know about it, military. To give their CO a little gift. It wasn't like they bought him the Taj Mahal. They gave him a little gift. And here it is. It's 1.4.
Howard.
Yeah.
Sorry, this you didn't send me that number, but I have a picture of it, so I hope this is good enough for you.
It is absolutely good enough for me. Mine's just about the same thing. This was what they gave him. This ring is now on display at Stepping Stones in Katona, New York, which is where Bill and Lois lived. It was given after Bill gave it to his in-laws, and they donated it to the museum, which is where that is. But this is what was presented to him by his group in France in November 1918. It was a nice little ring. Terrific. For his, that's a sign that he's going to be a great leader. He had it in my talent for leadership. We can take that down. The next sentence is another big red check. My talent for leadership. Again, he was a second lieutenant in the Coastal Artillery. artillery. He never fired a bullet in action. He never made it into action, but he's a leader. I imagined would place me, and here's another red check, at the head of vast enterprises, which I would manage with the utmost assurance. Utmost assurance is another red check. You see a lot of red on this first page? Hell yeah. And I love the way he describes it, that he would not just be the head of vast enterprises, but he would manage it with the utmost assurance. You know what assurance means? Assurance means you're doing something which inspires great confidence, that he would lead so great that everybody would be in awe. That's what assurance is. It's inspiring confidence. According to the 1938 dictionary that I have, it says to behave in a manner which inspires confidence. The ego. The guy thinks very highly of himself. The way I like to look at it is he's King Bill of the Kingdom of Wilson. And I say that because in my family, some of my great aunts who were kind of wealthy, who kind of bailed me out a lot over the years, used to call me King Howard of the Kingdom of Eber, that I've got to give up the throne because you got to move on with life. But in any case, Bill was King Bill of Wilson. So again, money and status, recognition, you know that money, status, recognition, they are mind, mood altering substances as well. So besides alcohol, Bill had trouble with another group of mind, mood altering substances. So continuing, I think we're going to do it this time. There are 31 references on this page using the words I or me. It's awesome how much he does that. So if you want, I'm going to count them as we go along. I'm going to circle them and count them. And if you like, you could do that too. I'm real anal about this kind of shit. So it's 31 references on one page alone. So here's the first one. Reference number 1. I took a night law course and obtained employment as an investigator for a surety company. Surety is an insurance company. The school that he went to is a Brooklyn Law School. Was about a half a mile, 10 blocks from where he lived in at 182 Clinton Street. But he took this night law course, and he took a job for an insurance company, not even for a law company. Please highlight this next sentence. The drive for success was on. I'd prove, here's number 2, I'd prove the world I was important. Number 3. Can anyone identify with that? I don't know what I was going to do. I didn't. But I knew that the world was just sitting back waiting for Howard Ebert to appear. Whatever it was I was bringing, the world was waiting for me to do it. That's what was in my mind as an adolescent. And he's the same way. But the word he used, the drive was on. When you drive, when you're being driven, rather, you're doing something without choice. Cattle are driven. So Bill is already being driven by something. He's being pushed by something. And again, I think at this point, it's that mind, mood altering substance of status and egoism and recognition. So I proved to the world that I was important. That's not only 2 and 3 of the I's, but I've underlined that in red because that's another example of his quest for status. I'd prove I was important. Not just that I was, but I get them to see it too. My work, number 4, took me, 5, about Wall Street, and little by little, I, number 6 for those of you who are counting, became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? And I've underlined why not I in red because I think that's also a recognition of status that I deserve that, right? Don't they know who I am? I'm King Bill of Wilson. If some people could succeed, of course I'm going to succeed. Don't you know who I am? You can call me Bill. You don't have to call me Your Highness, but we know what the status is. We got it down. Why not I? That's at I is number 8, incidentally, is number 7. Number 8 is the next sentence. I studied economics and business as well as law. Potential alcoholic that I was 9. I 10. Nearly failed my law course. I'm going to stop doing that because it gets annoying. I recognize that. I'm just going to point out another example and you could start numbering them. So my law course, that was number 11, my law course. Potential alcoholic that I was 9. I nearly failed my law course. My is the 11. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. I put a big check mark next to it to identify with it because in college, I never learned how to study. As a kid, nobody ever taught me. I never learned how to study. I was not a good student. If I was really interested in a subject, I would do well in it. But most subjects I was not interested in. But so in college, when we had exams, what I would do is I would get a handful of speed, stay up the night before the exam or the paper that's due, and put it together and study for it. But I'm shaking so bad and my teeth are grinding from the speed that I had to take a couple of drinks or a couple of lines or a couple of hits to take the edge off. And of course, one asked for the second, which asked for the third, which demands the fourth. And by the time I got to the classroom for the test, all I could do is drop on the desk and drool all over the test paper. That's how I can identify with Bill here. I was too drunk to think or write. That's how I showed up for my tests. Though, please highlight this sentence. Though my drinking is another example, was not yet continuous. And I've underlined not yet continuous because I really identify with that. I hung my hat on that it wasn't continuous. I didn't drink all day long. I wasn't taking drugs well, I was, but I wasn't taking the same drug all day long. It was always something else. It disturbed my wife. My drinking wasn't continuous, yet it disturbed my wife. Anybody have people in your life who were disturbed by your drinking and drugging? Right? And I used to think, what the hell is their problem? Right? I got it under control, Dad. Chill. But it greatly disturbed. And again, disturbed is defined as to make one uneasy. Later on in the book, Bill gives us one of our working orders, which is our job is to disturb about the grave nature of alcoholism. Disturb the person who's coming in new, or disturb the guy who's sitting in the back with 20 years and not sponsoring anybody. To disturb means to make uneasy. Our job is to make people uneasy about alcoholism, whether you're new or you've been around a while. That's our job, is to make people uncomfortable because that's what creates action. You won't take your shoe off to get the pebble out of it unless there's a pebble in it. That's what we're talking about. It disturbed my wife. My is number 14. I know I said I wasn't, but I'm counting them anyway. We had long walks, long talks when I would still her forebodings. Forebodings are just fears. You got to be ready for this one. Highlight the rest of this sentence. Telling her that men of genius, big red line under men of genius, conceived their best projects when drunk, that the most majestic constructions of philosophic thoughts, That whole phrase is underlined in red. Most majestic constructions of philosophic thoughts were so derived. Think of what he's doing here. Bill Wilson, who has done nothing. He hasn't written a thing. He hasn't performed a thing. He's done nothing. But he immediately puts himself in a class with Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Louis Stevenson, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Rimbaud, Baudelaire, William Faulkner, Gauguin. I can go on for famous, noted artists who are addicts or alcoholics. And Bill is putting himself in that category, saying, in order for me to do my great creations, I have to be drunk. And I wish wrote that he would have included what I bet was Lois's response to that, which was, yeah, can you show me one thing you've done? If she didn't say that, she should have. She sure as hell should have done that. You're going to give me that nonsense that you have to be drunk to create these great things of majestic thought? What is it you've created to date up until now? Created a lot of drunken destruction, but what great philosophic thought has come from King Bill of Wilson? Not much. Continuing. So actually, he's putting himself, he's not only the king of Wilson, he's the poet laureate of the kingdom of Wilson. By the time I, 16, had completed the law course, I knew the law was not for me. And you identify with that. It's every day was, I want to do something else. Today, I want to be an astronaut. Tomorrow, I want to be a fireman. Watch a movie. I want to be a cowboy. It just changed from day to day. Same thing with this guy. The inviting maelstrom, which is chaos of Wall Street, chaos in an excitement sense, chaos which breeds excitement. The inviting maelstrom of Wall Street had me is 19, in its grip. Business and financial leaders were my heroes, my number 20. I'm going to suggest you highlight this next sentence. Out of this alloy, out of this blend of drink and speculation, please underline drink and above it write alcohol, and underline speculation and above it write thinking, because that's what speculation is. It's thinking. So out of this blend of alcohol and thought, I commenced to forge a weapon that would one day turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me, 22, number 22, cut me to ribbons. Interesting story within a story here. It's gotten so that most people know this story, but I'll still tell it for the people who may not. When Bill was an adolescent, Bill was raised by his maternal grandfather. Griffith was his name. I'll think of his first name, Gardner Griffith. And Gardner had a subscription to National Geographic magazine. And as an adolescent, he would read these things. And he was reading an article in one of the National Geographics about the Aborigines in Australia. And it said that they were the only people on the face of the earth who knew how to make a successful, effective boomerang. And Bill thought that was ridiculous. He asked his grandfather, how could that be? These people are running around in G-strings. They don't even know how to make clothes for themselves, yet you're telling me they could make a boomerang? And his grandfather said, yeah, Bill, that's true. That's true. Here's another thing you didn't do to Bill. You didn't say no. You don't say no to Bill Wilson. That's a challenge. Anytime Bill would hear something like that, oh, don't tell me I can't do something. So he set his mind to making this boomerang. And as he explains it in other writings, Everything else got neglected. Chores around the house, studies at school, everything was forgotten. The only thing he had in mind was, I got to make this boomerang. I got to make this boomerang. And he finally, the story goes, he probably did it out of the headboard from his bed or his grandfather's bed, but he made a successful boomerang. He said the first time he used it, it nearly took his grandfather's head off, but he made a successful boomerang. And he didn't only make one, he made two of them. And I forgot to give it to Rob. I can bring it next week. I have a picture of at Stepping Stones in Katona, New York, above the fireplace in Bill's home, hangs both of those boomerangs. He kept them. He kept them. But again, don't tell me I can't do anything, do something. So it's an interesting story within a story, using the words boomerang to describe the alcohol going from fun to destroying him to the challenge of boomerang. Continuing.
Howard, did you want me to show the picture?
Oh, you got it. That's right. What am I talking about? You got it. Beautiful, Rob. Thank you. There she is, right above the fireplace, two boomerangs. When I first saw it, it looked like clothes hangers. Why is he hanging hangers from the? But when you get close to it, oh, wait a minute. That's a boomerang. Damn it. There's his boomerang, and it's there. I've been to Stepping Stones a few times, and it's there. It's absolutely there. Okay. Continuing. Thanks, Rob. That's great. I keep forgetting you have most of these things. I think I got them mostly from you in the first place. In any case, just for what it's worth, before Bill wrote this version of Bill's story, he wrote another version that was like 30 pages long. And it had a lot more of these instances of don't tell me I can't do something. Like the boomerang story is in there. There's another story where he tells his grandfather he found a violin up in the attic, and he asked what that was about. And his grandfather said that belonged to Uncle whatever, Uncle Fester or whatever. And Bill said, gee, I'm going to teach myself how to play this thing. And his grandfather said, come on, Bill, nobody teaches themselves to play a violin. Plus, there's not even any strings on that silly thing. Don't even try. Don't tell Bill he can't do anything. Wound up playing first violin in the school orchestra. Don't tell me I can't do something. Bill wanted to play on the baseball team in his high school. And the coach said, nope, you're not a baseball player. You are a basketball player. You're tall, skinny, Langley. You're a basketball player. Don't tell Bill he can't do something. Bill wound up being the captain of the baseball and the basketball team. Don't tell me I can't do something. In the book, that the original story is filled with instances like that. If you'd like copies of it, there are three versions that I have. There's one that's actually has pictures in it. I love the fact that it's got pictures. There's another one which is actually like a manuscript with the lines numbered on the side. Where is it? Well, you can't see the numbers, but they are numbered on the side. And then there's this version and this version. They're all the same. They just typed or put up differently. I think, Rob, I put the link in the things I sent you. Can we take a look at that? And if anyone wants, if you want to put them in the chat, all you got to do is click on it and you can print a copy of it. I think, well, if I take a look, I could tell you what it is. I think 101 or something.
Would it be 110, Howard?
Let's take a look.
Bill's story for the study?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's 3 or 4 versions of that. They're all PDFs. Oh, no, that's just a suggested reading list of some books. Let's go to.
Bear with me.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Yeah, it's a PDF?
Yeah,
Okay,
not JPEG. It's a PDF.
bear with me, people. Sorry about that.
No, it's my fault.
Big book. We got big book reviews, craving, no longer
No,
phenomenal, and
no,
PDF.
no. All right. What I'll do is when we wrap up, I'll put a link in the chat.
What's the number of it, Howard? And I'll grab it from your
Number
files.
is um 725. Okay, it's numbered 100A, 100B, 100C, 100D. It's right before the Hampshire Grenadier headstone. It's between Napoleon and the headstone.
Okay.
See it? Actually, I got it. I can just copy it.
Hmm.
I'm going to copy and paste the one with the pictures.
Okay.
Let me just.
Sorry, Howard.
No, it's my. I
I've
probably didn't send it.
no, it's not that. But I also have another file for you that all the stuff that you've given out for the Big Book Compendium, or
Okay.
I'm sorry, the Big Book Comes Alive. So I've just brought up the picture of Bill 100.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. And I put the link for that version of it. That's what's in the chat right now. The one with the pictures, because I like pictures.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you something from here. I had a genius for postponing, evading, and shirking responsibility. But a certain dogged obstinacy, persistence, drove me to succeed at special undertakings when my heart was set on it. Especially did I revel in attacking the difficult or what was told to me to be impossible. Told like impossible. Grandfather, for instance, said no one but an Australian could make and throw the boomerang. No schoolwork was done, no wood box filled, little sleep was there until the boomerang had circled the church steeple, returning to almost decapitate him. Having accomplished this, my interest ceased. Once he got there, he wasn't interested anymore. So it was for my ambition to be a ball player, for I was finally elected captain of the team in the little seminary I attended after leaving country school. Someone told me I could never sing. So I took up voice until I appeared in a recital. Don't tell me I'm not a singer. Then, as with the boomerang, my interest ended abruptly. I commenced to fuss with the violin. This became such an obsession that athletics, schoolwork, and all else went to the board, much by the board, much to everyone's consternation. I carried fiddling so far I failed to graduate. It was most embarrassing because I was the president of the senior class. Status, all about status. So collapsed a certain legend of infallibility I had built around myself. How's that? Talking about ego, a certain legend of infallibility. Okay, you could take that down. There's a lot of great stuff in these stories. You will learn a lot more about Bill Wilson than just from the story that we're reading now. It's fascinating. If you want any of the other versions, just drop me a line at thebigbookstudy@aol.com. But I tell you, they're all the same. One has pictures, one is in 2 columns, one is in 4 columns. They look like publishing galleys. So back to the book. What time is it? Oh, no, not back to the book. It's not time. Oh, great. You put all of the versions in there. Look at that. What a man. What a guy. Great, Rob. All right.